Hello, my name is Chris Bennett, and this is my introduction video to a remarkable material called Starlite. It was invented in 1994, well, before 1994, by Englishman Maurice Ward. And after a news article in Jane's Defense Review, there was a lot of interest developed worldwide, and there was many different news articles. Then there was a Tomorrow's World documentary, short report on it, and then there was a Dateline NBC segment with Jane Pauley and Stone Phillips. Several years later, there was a Business Week article, and I read about Starlite and became interested in it just as a independent entrepreneur living here in America. So I looked on the internet and found the inventor's contact information and gave him a call, had a few discussions with him, and then I flew over to England and met him and his family, and we became friends, and I worked with him ever since then until he died a few years ago, unfortunately, before his material could be released to the whole world where it could save a lot of lives. From the very beginning in 1994, after the Dateline NBC report, NASA and Boeing became involved. And if you watch the Dateline NBC report, you can hear the NASA spokesperson saying, "We're very interested in this material. It could have many different applications for us." And then they show the space shuttle taking off, and the announcer says, "Maybe Starlight could help with the problematic heat shield." So I have in my possession many different documents to confirm the story that I'm going to tell you. And basically, the NASA instructed the Boeing company to test Starlight as a possible replacement for the heat shield on the space shuttle, which they did. And after extensive testing in St. Louis and in Southern California, they produced a 33-page report on Starlite in which they had tested Starlite against the highest heat sources, the most high-energy lasers, fire, and Starlite stopped the heat in all cases. In one of the pages, the final report is 33 pages, and in one of the pages there's a chart that compares the material on the space shuttle with Starlite, and Starlite is better but at millimeters thick. It's hard to believe, but that's what I've been told, and that's what the report says. So I've been struggling. I struggled with the inventor to find interested people that wanted to invest in it. And Boeing tested it extensively until around 2000. And in 2002, there was a series of emails that one of the people at Boeing wrote, Dr. Alan Atkins, which I'm going to make available. And it says in there, Dr. Atkins wrote to 6 or 7 other engineers and executives at Boeing and said, "We really need this. Boeing needs this. The world needs this." But the issue that keeps coming up is NIH, not invented here. Boeing didn't want to invest in it because they didn't own it. So the next set of emails says that Maurice got a phone call from John Davis, who said, "We're not interested in this and we don't want to deal with you anymore." So they slammed the door on us, and 3 months later the space shuttle blew up over Texas when the heat shield failed. So after that, the whole shuttle fleet was grounded, and I began contacting NASA and Boeing to try to get some interest again. And Dr. Atkins at first agreed to help, but then he started slandering the inventor and saying Maurice was difficult, etc., etc., and unless he changes, it's never going to happen. In the previous emails, he had said that Maurice was a fair person, and he had been very patient. So then I contacted the NASA people, and they said, oh yes, we know about Starlite, but after emails back and forth, they said, we don't want to fund this because it's going to take too long to develop, and we don't have a lot of funding. So NASA went on to spend $1 billion on fixing the heat shield problem, and they came up with a variety of solutions, one of which looks a little bit like Starlite. They call it the goo, and Boeing got a lot of that money, but we didn't get any of it. So ever since then, Boeing and NASA have been refusing to deal with us, and soon after that I've been trying to contact various media outlets and to get some coverage, but all of my contacts have been, I've been turned away. There's no interest in the media so far of the people that I've contacted. So that's part of the story. There's a lot more details which I'll be posting in videos on the YouTube channel that I'm creating for this. And our goal is to raise some funding so that we can create a documentary about Starlite and potentially create a company to make it available. After the inventor died, his family shared the full secret of Starlite with me. It's a 33-page document also. And I looked up some of the ingredients, and I found that Boeing patented our material. To back up, they also broke into our laboratory in Huntington Beach, California, after the inventor, Maurice, set up a laboratory there to demonstrate Starlite. And he was, doing his experimenting and demonstrating it. And then he had to go out of town, and there was a lock, there was a seal, nobody was supposed to go in. Then he got a phone call from the Boeing people. We have to go in, there's something spilled under the door, it's an emergency. So they went in and sampled everything. So they got part of the formula. They got, of course, they didn't get the full recipe that Maurice had, but they went ahead 5 years later and patented it. So I've been in a battle with them ever since. In my mind, it's one of the biggest David and Goliath stories in modern times, and we're going to see how it goes. I'm unstoppable. I've been working on this for 20 years, and I will not stop until the world has Starlite. So another critical issue, this firefighters could be protected, homes could be protected on the outside and on the inside. Starlite can be mixed with a lot of different materials, with plastic, rubber, paint. And so you could make furniture more fire resistant, rugs, the curtains, things inside of houses, and then a thin coating on the outside of the house to block fire. Then I found about 10 different companies which seem to have knockoffs of Starlite. So for example, Flame Seal in Houston, after I found their name connected to Boeing and then they worked on a spray-on fireproofing for Boeing jets, which that's what Starlite was tested for and found to work. And Flame Seal sold millions of dollars of stock, built a plant in Houston, Texas, got FAA partial approval, if not complete, but they never sold the material, and it's not going into Boeing jets. So after the Swiss Air disaster in 1998, in which over 200 people died, the FAA traced the problem to a fire that developed in the insulation that brought it down. And then subsequently they identified another insulation called AN26, and they put out a mandate that Boeing had to replace that material in thousands of jets. So Starlite was tested as a solution where they could pull out the insulation, which is all throughout the hull of the jet. It keeps the jet warm, the people warm inside, and it blocks the sound. So instead of having to throw out all the old insulation, and replace it with entirely new insulation, they could pull the insulation out, spray Starlite on, and then put it back. So Starlite was tested and it worked for that application, but again, instead of using it and giving us a contract, they stole it and gave it to Flame Seal. Flame Seal developed it and perfected it, but then after I contacted the FBI in, around 12 years ago, and the Boeing fraud hotline, it seems to have derailed all sales, and so the Boeing jets are still up there flying around, endangering people. And I found 2 Boeing jets that crashed, and I think 100 people died in one crash. People were running from the crash on fire, screaming for help, according to witnesses. So before this happens again, I'm in a rush to get this story in the news, be heard, and find out what is going on from the Boeing people. So they've been stonewalling us, and we're not going to put up with it anymore. I'm still working with Maurice's family, and one of his daughters, who worked with him for 10 years on Starlite, has developed some alternative formulas. But we fully intend to use the original Starlite formula because we have prior art rights. Because we were using it before Boeing, their patent is worthless. So let's see. Another part of the story is I contacted Air Force One about 6 or 7 years ago, the military base where it gets maintained. Talked to a safety captain there, Captain Ponsor, and he relayed the message to other people there. I sent an email saying, you may have a problem with fire in Air Force One, and we have the solution. So instead of responding, they gave Boeing a contract, and Boeing got $8 million to fix the problem. That was in the news. You can find it on Google. Just search AN26 Fire Air Force One, and you'll find the article. So we've been getting the runaround, basically. But my new strategy is to go door to door to the local fire departments here in Austin, Texas, and drop off some materials to the fire captain and to anybody that's there. Tell them we're creating a task force. We'd like to invite them to join it, and thereby create some momentum, and have the fire captains call the local news and say, will you do a report on this? Because they're never going to get it unless this gets in the news. The public's not going to get it because there's not going to be any demand. I've been calling people for the last 20 years, but they say, what? I've never heard of this. And they give me the cold shoulder. So when Maurice was in the news, he was getting 100 phone calls a day. Totally different. So I invite you to check out our material, and make a donation on our crowdfunding platform, and you'll be able to watch the news, and you'll be able to be part of something incredible. Thank you for watching.